I was eating. When I was finished, as it is their tradition, they began to tell me some stories. And the chief told me a story that took place in that area, and he said it was a real true story that reminded him of what I taught that day. And he said that there was a farmer in Zimbabwe who was a sheep herder. And he kept sheep for many years, and he would take them out to graze in the forest area in the hills of Zimbabwe. And one day while he was out grazing, he heard a sound coming from one of the areas in the bush. It sounded like a cat. And it kept on making this sound like a cat in trouble. He walked over to the bush and he moved the bush on the side, and he found, to his surprise, a little cub, a little lion, a little kitten lion, just a beautiful little thing. And suddenly he pushed the bush back and he ran, because he knew that if the father lion or the mother lion was nearby, they would kill him and eat him. So he ran up on a rock and stayed there, never came down. His sheep were still grazing down there, and he was afraid. The sun began to set, and he wondered why the lion didn't come back for the cub. It began to grow dark, damp, and he knew that if he left that cub there, the cub would die. And so he came down from the rock very slowly, looking this way and that way, afraid as he approached the bush. He didn't want to leave the little cub out there by itself, and obviously this cub must have been abandoned by the father and mother lion. And so he put his hands into the bush and he picked up the cub, looking left and right. He put the cub inside his little ragged shirt, and he ran with the sheep following him back to his little village, went and just jumped over the fence, brought the sheep in the pen, and he took the little cub in the house. And he began to cuddle the cub, and he began to feed the cub. And as the cub began to become acquainted with him, he began to adapt him as a surrogate mother. And he began to feed the cub every day, and the cub became very strong again and began to become vital. And then the cub began to grow around the farmhouse and around the sheep. And the cub began to go out with the sheep. Every time the sheep went out to graze, the cub would go with the sheep. And he would spend all his time with the sheep. And he would eat with the sheep and drink with the sheep and sleep with the sheep. And he would even stay in the pen with the sheep. And after 2 years, he became a beautiful, nice young lion. And he became so acquainted with the sheep, he began to think like the sheep. He slept with the sheep, ate with the sheep. He drank with the sheep. And he began to think like the sheep. And he never growled. He actually began to make sounds like the sheep. He thought he was a sheep because he spent all his life with the sheep. And as he went out every day to graze with them, he would stay out there and be with the sheep. And he would try to chew the green grass and the different leaves. He thought he was a sheep. And every day he would do this. And then one day something happened that he had never seen before. And the chief said that the farmer told him this story that changed his life. He said that one day, while they were grazing, he heard a sound that he had never heard before. The sound was like thunder. It shook the whole forest. It impacted all the echoes among the mountains. He became so afraid, and suddenly he looked and saw where the sound was coming from, and across the river appeared a beast he had never seen before. It was the most monstrous beast, ugly creature. And the creature made this sound that shook the forest and shook the jungle and shook all the sheep. And the sheep turned around and took off and began to run toward the farmhouse. And the little lion that thought he was a sheep that became a big lion, he also began to run because he figured if the sheep run, I'm a sheep, I better run too. And so he ran and jumped over the fence with the sheep, and they all stayed in the pen, and they began to shake, and they were so afraid, and they knew, my God, we're gonna be destroyed. And as he peeked over the pen, far in the distance, he saw that beast put his head down in the grass. When he picked his head up, in his teeth was a beautiful little lamb drenched in red blood. The beast shook his head as if to say, I am vanished in the forest with that little lamb in his teeth, soaked in red blood, as the sheep and the little lion shivered with fear behind the pen. He was afraid to go out anymore that week. The farmer took them to a different area. He thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, smelled like a sheep, ate like a sheep, thought like a sheep, drank like a sheep. And so he went with the sheep. And they went out to a new area, began to eat and feed. And suddenly he heard the sound again, and he became so afraid he took off the sheep, and they jumped over the pen again, and they knew, my God, the beast has come, the beast has come. And he peeped over the fence and he saw the beast one more time, and there was the beast, making that sound that shook the forest. And as the sound began to shake the forest, he put his head down and picked it up, and in his beautiful teeth was a beautiful little lamb that had become drenched in red blood. And he shook the lamb as if to say, I am in charge. And he vanished into the forest. And the sheep were so afraid, they stayed in the pen. The little lion that thought he was a sheep, he began to shiver and shake along with the sheep. He thought, my God, I've never seen such a beast in my life. And about 2 weeks after that, they went out, finally built the nerve to go out to graze far and wide. And as they were grazing again, they went to a shallow part of the river to drink. And he looked, and across, before he could drink, the beast appeared, and that sound came out again that shook the forest. And everything around him became so afraid. He knew, I'm going to die. And the sheep ran, so he ran, and they ran toward the pen, jumped over, and they hid behind the wall, shivering. And the little lion that thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, smelled like a sheep, ate like a sheep. He said, oh, I'm going to be destroyed. And he saw that beast. That was the first time he got a good look at the beast's face. He had never seen such a monster before. He was afraid, like the sheep were afraid. 7 days afterwards, they were out grazing. This time they figured they were far away from the monster. And the little lion that thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, smelled like a sheep, ate like a sheep. He went down to the river with the sheep to drink. And as he leaned over to drink, he saw the beast, and he jumped up and ran toward the pen and jumped over the fence, and he saw the beast. He was so afraid, he began to shake, and then he became confused because he wondered, why didn't the sheep run? And he was there by himself behind the fence, wondering, why didn't they see the beast? After his confusion subsided, he slowly walked back out to where the sheep was grazing. And as he walked toward them, he began to make the sound like a sheep to try and communicate with them as to why they didn't see the beast. They didn't run. And after a while, he became so confused. And he went back down to the water to drink because he was thirsty. And he leaned over to get a drink. When he leaned over, suddenly he saw the beast, and he took off and he ran back to the farmhouse, jumped over the fence, and he was confused because the sheep didn't see the beast. Didn't they see what he saw? He was so afraid. After there for hours wondering and puzzled, he wondered, why doesn't the sheep run? Didn't they see what he saw? Eventually wandered back to the flock, went in among them, and by this time they had grazed down to a very narrow part of the river. And he leaned over one more time because he was very thirsty now to take a drink. And as he leaned over to take a drink, he saw the beast. He froze. He jumped back. And he's about to run when suddenly that noise, that sound was across the river again. And he became so afraid. He knew the river is so narrow, if I try to run, I'm going to get eaten like the lambs got eaten. And he stood there looking at that beast. As that beast made that sound that shook every muscle in his body, he knew it's over. And the beast did something strange. The beast began to walk in the water toward him. And as the beast walked, he stood there in the middle of the river, and he just looked at the little lion that thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, smelled like a sheep, ate like a sheep, sounded like a sheep. And he stood there and he made that sound to his face. And the sound became so loud he began to tremble and shake, and he knew, I'm dead. He closed his eyes. He knew, I'm going to be eaten. And the beast didn't eat him. The beast stepped 2 steps forward, closer to him. And by now he could actually feel the vibration of the sound as the beast lifted his head and made the sound. His whole body shook with the sound of that powerful voice. And he began to wonder, I'm going to die. This is it. And the beast took 1 step closer. Now he's only 5 feet away. As if the beast was making a point, telling him, try it. And he understood in some strange way that the beast didn't want to eat him. The beast wanted him to make the sound. And so the beast kept on making the sound and came closer and made the sound. And he was so close now, he knew that if I don't try to make the sound, he's going to kill me. And the farmer was on the rock watching this play out as these 2 interesting creatures stood in the river. And the beast made that sound. He forgot about the sheep, as if he was transfixed on this little lion that thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, smelled like a sheep, thought like a sheep. And he made the sound to the point where the little lion said, if I don't try it, I'm going to die. And so he bellied down deep into his gut, and he tried to make the sound before he is killed. And he put all of his strength, and he went, bear. That made him conclude, I'm dead. Because I sound just like the sheep with whom I spent all my life with. The beast did not respond as he expected. The beast took 2 steps closer. And now he could almost smell the heat of his breath as the beast made that sound 1 more time in his face with all the power and shook every bone in his body. And the little lion that became a big lion that thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, smelled like a sheep, he thought like a sheep. He knew, oh God, I'm dead. And he says, okay, I'll try 1 more time. And he went, bear. And the beast went, and he went, bear. And the beast went, and the beast wouldn't eat him. The beast had no interest in destroying him. So the beast took 1 step closer. Now they're almost nose to nose. The little lion that thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, ate like a sheep, smelled like a sheep, lived like a sheep, slept like a sheep. He closed his eyes because he knew, I'm dead. But the beast made the sound 1 more time, and he felt it in his face. And something happened to that little lion that thought he was a sheep. He suddenly became angry. Not at the beast. He became angry at the fact that the beast believed that in him was something he didn't know existed. Listen to me carefully, friends. It happened to me. You never change until you are angry. You will never change what you tolerate. The beast refused to believe that the sound he made was his true sound. And so the beast kept on making that sound that he believed was deep down in that little lion that thought he was a sheep. And he kept making that sound until the little lion that became a big lion that thought it was a sheep became angry, and his anger took a hold of his whole body. And suddenly he decided, if he believes it's there, then it must be there. And he dug down deep to a point where he never knew existed. As a matter of fact, he decided, I'm not gonna leave until I make the sound. If he believes I can do it, then it must be there. Because he remembered that what he saw in the water is what he saw with his eyes. Suddenly, he went down deep in the pit of his bowels, and suddenly something connected, and something began to bubble up on the inside of his internal organs. All of his body began to ripple with power. He connected with a source of strength he never knew existed. His muscles began to shake. His whole bone structure began to tremble as if something took over his body. And he felt this thing coming up slowly that he never felt before. And suddenly, with all of his might, he went, and the beast began to jump. And the beast went, and he went, and the beast went, and he went, and the beast went, and he went, Suddenly the farmer said he stood there for 25 minutes watching a display of power he had never seen. And then suddenly, as if instructed by an unseen hand, the beast stopped and began to walk backwards toward the jungle. And then he stopped. And the little lion that became a big lion, that thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, thought like a sheep, ate like a sheep, slept with the sheep all his life. He knew that the beast was trying to say something. He was telling him, "Are you coming?" Suddenly he became afraid again, because he looked at the beast and he had felt something he never felt before. He connected with a self he never knew existed. He became so possessed by that power that he felt. He had a choice to make. And the beast walked back with just a few more steps. He's now among the jungle leaves, and he stops. And he makes the sound one more time. "Are you coming?" And the little lion that thought he was a sheep, acted like a sheep, thought like a sheep, grew up as a sheep, ate like a sheep, suddenly realized he had a decision to make. He looked back at the farm where there was a pen to protect him, free food provided by the farmer, protection from the weather, safety in a pen covered from the rain, everything provided, friendship among sheep. Then he looked at the beast and he saw nothing but jungle and hard work, responsibility, find your own way. He looked back at the farm and he saw a neatly paved road with structures and a house. He looked back at the beast and he saw no roads. You got to make your own way in that jungle. He looked back at the farm and he saw the food provided by the shepherd. He looked at the beast and he realized, I got to find my own food out there. There was no security in the jungle, no safety in the jungle. There's no protection in the jungle. And he looks back at the farm and he saw everything provided. He was domesticated. That's what society does with you. They domesticate you. Domestication means they tell you how to act, how high to jump, how high you could jump, what you could eat, what you can't eat, where you could go, where you can't go. They put a fence around you. And he knew that if he went back to the farm, he wouldn't have to think for himself. The farmer could think for him. He would never have to plan his future. The farmer would plan his future. And then he looked at the lion and he knew that if I go into the jungle, there's no one to protect me, no one to plan for me. I got to think for myself, design my own destiny. So he looked back at the farm and he looked at the beast. He looked at the farmhouse and he looked at the jungle. The farmer told the chief that he saw something he'll never forget. He saw him look in the water one more time. This time he was never afraid. He saw himself. He looked at the beast and realized that he is the beast. So he turned his back on the farm, walked toward the beast. The beast made the sound one more time. And he made the sound one more time. Suddenly, he vanished. He vanished into the forest with the beast. And the beast, it's okay. And the little lion was seen no more until 7 days later. They both showed up where the sheep were. They made the sound, the sheep ran. They both put their heads down. When they raised it up, they both had little lambs in their teeth, drenched in blood. He had become himself. When I heard that story, I could not forget it. As a matter of fact, I wrote the story in this book. Because there in the middle of that jungle in Zimbabwe, I heard the most important reality of leaders and followers. The reason why I came to this conference, the reason why I flew here for hours today to get here, the reason why I left my wife and my leadership team and my organization and all the businesses that I run, the reason why I left them to come here is because I'm the beast. And I have come to make some noise. And by Wednesday, I'm going to start walking backward. And you got to make a decision before this conference is over. You can go back and be domesticated. Stay on a job where they pay you less than you're worth. Believe other people's opinions about you more than God's opinions. Or you can decide to leave the safety of society and enter the jungle of responsibility and become the real person that you were born to be. I heard some bears around here. You see, Jesus Christ is called the Lion of Judah. And he's going to make some noise this week in this conference. And you got a decision to make. Whether you will stay among the sheep and hide behind the pen and stay in the safety of welfare, and hide behind the wall of affirmative action. Oh, I ain't talking to nobody. Or whether you're going to decide, ain't nobody going to dictate my future. I know what I'm talking about. No one's going to tell me what I can or cannot do anymore. Why? Because I met the beast. And he told me the truth about myself. In the book of James, there's a verse that changed my life. It says, the word of God is like water